name's Carl Peterson. I was Spec.5 when I got out of the Army. Went in, as we all do, as an E1, work your way up. As far as when I first went to Vietnam, I went there in, I believe it was May of 1968. And found myself in a world that the 18-year-old doesn't really understand. And I spent the next 10 months tromping around down the Delta with the 9th Division. Basically, my job was running convoys in and out of base camps throughout the Delta. And we would, resupply ammunition, resupply food, carry troops in and out. So I volunteered at that time to make permanent runs, permanent convoys from Long Binh to Quan Loy, about 80 miles one way. And spent the next 7 months doing that. It was extremely interesting 7 months, and where I went to, I'm not really sure, but I just know that when I got home, I was not the same person as to when I left. I went from being a happy youngster to being a grumpy old man. Everything seemed out of whack. Nothing in this country seemed to be the same as it was when I had left. The catalyst was introduced to me by a very close friend, Glenda, who I know you know. And Glenda had made reference to the catalyst and the work they had done with some veterans. And it just struck a bell with me that looking in these animals' eyes, it had a different effect. It changed the way I looked at things immediately, just in the advertising.
What changed? What did you feel?
Love. I have found that there's a program here that is not the same as everything else. There's a program here that is an education that we're not going to get anywhere else. And it's an education that I hope any veteran coming back today had an opportunity to go to. If I had seen this when I first got back from Vietnam, my outlook on life would have changed considerably back then. I noticed an acceptance of things, whereas I'm known as having quite a bit of a temper. I'm able to view things in a different light and be able to sit back and realize that, number one, people aren't doing things to me. The things that are happening out there, in some cases even instigated by me. My outlook on what happened and my reaction to it just was making matters even worse. And what I found was, through a few different tricks, I call them tricks, a few methods, if you will, that I'm able to take a look differently at what happens in a traffic instance, what happens in reaction to somebody else. And that if I would take the initiative and calm myself and realize that, everybody has problems, everybody deals with them in different manners, that if I could just send that information or that wave out there, what I was getting back was entirely different than what I've seen in the past. That it has an effect on people. As I'm standing and talking to someone, if I'm in a certain mood, I'm going to bring them right into that mood. So if I portray the right mood, again, I'm going to bring them into that mood. So it's opened my eyes to realizing that I can do a little bit to help instead of a lot to hurt.
The technique that you learned here, would you call it complicated?
No, not at all. It's actually was the biggest thing that I learned was the dropping of a pebble into the water. The fact that when you drop a pebble into the water, you see the waves ripple out. And if I was to take that same attitude and drop a thought from my head into the ground, it ripples out and it affects all those that are around me. So it's pretty simple exercise, nothing complicated about it. Even I can do it.
And one last thing, what would you say to other combat veterans about the catalyst?
I'll say this. As soon as you mention that to me, I get goosebumps, because the catalyst is here to provide you with some insight that I will guarantee you do not have right now. And if you don't get it, you're going to be walking through your next, I'm 65 years old. Think about walking through the next 45 years that way. It's not worth it. So if you can find some answers, it's really worth looking into. And this is the simplest solution. I've read so many self-help books that all come to the same conclusion. They're all correct, but they come to the same conclusion. And what I find out here is that there's no tricks, no magic or anything else. It's all in what I think and what I present. And if I'm able to change the way I think, I change the way I feel. And finding a way to ground yourself and finding a way to stay in that path is really worth the time and effort.